Warsaw, 1968. In 1967, an anti-Jewish campaign commenced in Communist Poland as a result of the removal of Soviet diplomatic relations with Israel. After the Six-Day War, more commonly known as the Arab-Israeli War, the anti-Jewish campaign started the removal of Jewish Poles from governmental positions, including party officials and secret police. People were also urged and sometimes forced to denounce Judaism. By the time March 1968 came around, the unrest was more and more prominent with the Polish people, because of the economic situation in Poland becoming worse and worse and the quality of life dropping. Free speech was also censored. An anti-Jewish propaganda campaign also ensued, and the Polish people had enough. Many came to the streets demanding reforms from the Polish Communist Party. The police was overwhelmed by the amount of people who protested in the streets. Many communist buildings and structures were damaged as a result, and people even went as far as lighting themselves on fire. The Communist Party was overwhelmed by the mass protests and forced to remove the anti-Jewish campaign, to not start a mass war zone like the one seen in Hungary during 1956. This resulted in the termination of the mass protests in Poland.
Although the Polish Communist Party was overwhelmed by the amount of people in the streets of Warsaw, they did not back down with the anti-Jewish campaign imposed by the Soviets. This resulted in the deployment of tear gas, which was largely ineffective due to a few years prior, most Polish civilians were given the MC1 gas mask in case of an NBC attack from the west. Among the protesters would have been members of the Polish resistance, which would have most likely been equipped with an MC1 gas mask. World War II era weapons surplused out by the Soviet Union, as well as AK-47s and other homemade variants, would also be present in their arsenal, and if the war continued to the 70s, they would most likely have captured AK-74s from the Russian forces. Because of the ineffectiveness of tear gas, Soviet troops would most likely move into Poland to help the local police and military deal with the protesters. Due to the Soviets' lack of riot training, they would most likely be overwhelmed and possibly fire on the crowd, similar to the American Kent State shootings, because of the lack of training. This would most likely be viewed as an act of aggression by the Polish resistance, which would in turn cause urban fighting between Polish civilians and Warsaw Pact troops, similar to the Budapest uprisings in 1956. As to whether or not these events would have happened is simply speculation. Whether or not the MC1 would have been used is a possibility. But just like human nature, war never changes. The Polish MC1 gas mask started production in the 1960s and was designed to be a general-purpose gas mask for both military and civil defense, at the time being called Obrona Cywilna in Communist Poland. The mask was a copy of the Czech CM3 and it was manufactured by the company Faser. Although this mask was also designed to be used by the military, it was never mass issued because of the filter placement becoming too cumbersome compared to the Hose ON14 mask or the cheek filters of the MP4, which would result in it being used for training purposes only. The mask did go on to serve with civil defense personnel and civilians in Poland until 1989, when communism in Poland would fall and the production and deployment of this mask would cease. The filter of this mask is designated the P5 filter, which features a combined charcoal and particulate filter providing good all-around filtration of the contaminated air. Because of this filter being manufactured in a Soviet-aligned state, it most likely follows the same filter template as other Warsaw Pact filters, which includes asbestos as a particulate filter. Usage of this filter is not recommended because prolonged usage could cause lung cancer or other asbestos-related diseases. Usage of modern 40mm ABEC filters is recommended.